DragonCon, thank you guys for joining us here on our stream. We've got some friends that you might not have seen at the convention before, but we're taking this opportunity to chat with them. The George Lucas Talk Show crew, guys, we've got Griffin, Connor, and Patrick. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to kind of to hang out with us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So obviously, you know, pandemic sucks, right? That's where we're at. Everyone's kind of isolated and trapped and things like that.
Very bad. Don't do it.
Yeah, not would 1 out of 5 stars. Would not recommend.
Absolutely.
But it's given us the opportunity to have these kind of meetings with friends who might not have made it to DragonCon before. So am I correct in saying we've never seen you guys even as just people hanging out in DragonCon before?
No.
Nice. Are you guys convention nerds in your own right? We're all nerds, obviously. But
yeah.
What are some of your convention experiences? I see Griffin nodding enthusiastically. Like, what's one of your convention experiences you've got, Griffin? Where do you typically go?
Well, I have been going to conventions since I was young, and before the convention scene really blew up as much as it did. So I remember going to conventions. Like there was a big Apple Comic-Con in New York years before there was a proper New York Comic-Con, and those conventions would be just like the ballroom on the 3rd story of a hotel in Midtown. So I was going to conventions back then, and then continued going to them. I pretended to be a journalist to be able to go to San Diego in 2011 or 12. That was my first San Diego experience, and then I was on the Amazon live action Tick reboot, so I was able to get my trips to conventions paid for a number of years there, either doing promo stuff or then since the show ended, being able to go and do appearance stuff. So that's been really nice. I really feel like I beat the system and came full circle. And now I get money for going to conventions, which I spend entirely at the conventions.
It's like an Ouroboros there of just self-fulfilling financial prophecy, you know?
Right. Rather than losing money, I'm just net neutral now.
Right. Yeah. You're not going into the red. So you're good there.
And my apartment gets more crowded.
I can relate with that. I understand. Connor, tell me about some convention experiences you might have had, man.
Well, I always would admire conventions from afar, but I could never bring myself until we finally started doing panels at New York.
You and I went to one before we started doing a panel.
Yeah, but I had like I got in free.
Yeah.
Like I've only ever been able to do it when I think I went to that one, but I was doing a panel. I was doing I was being George Lucas on the College Humor panel, and so I got in with the badge, and it confirmed my suspicion, which is that I just mentally can't. If I can get into a convention with a badge for free, then I feel okay wandering and maybe not buying anything, or maybe buying something small. But I think if I got to the point where I paid the amount that it costs to get into a convention, if I spent less than that, I'd feel foolish. Like you know what I mean? I would need to match at least. And then I think, well, I can't just match it. I have to buy a lot more. So it really is just, I stay away knowing that I have the potential to ruin myself financially even going in with the badge. It's a huge risk because you're just walking through and I feel like I'm an addict in a place where it's the thing that I'm addicted to. And I'll buy things that if I was in a normal store, I maybe would not buy. But because I'm in a special place and everyone around me is buying things, it sort of makes me feel like, oh, we can all afford it. Like we can all afford it. Everyone's buying it. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's the worst kind of peer pressure in that regard, you know, for impulse shoppers, man. Dealers in con rooms are terrifying.
I like if I have the badge and I buy nothing and I just enjoy the experience, I don't feel like I lost money. You know what I mean? Whereas I wouldn't feel good paying to go to a convention and then not buying a ton of things, you know?
Yeah, because you were just there just for promotional or whatever. You're like, I'm not actually attending. You know, you're kind of skating through.
The first, I also realized that you kind of lose your mind at a convention too, because Patrick and I, the one that he's remembering, the first time I was at one, we saw the premiere of the X-Files reboot. And we're in like a crowded room, and Duchovny and Gillian Anderson, they're all there. And so even though if you objectively watch the first episode of the X-Files reboot now, it's not a great episode. We actually were kind of like, it's good, right? Like, we're like, it's really like, it's not the best. Like even then in the room, we were like, it's not the best, not my favorite episode, but it's like, really good. And then you realize later that you're like, oh, I just got swept up in the. We were all so excited. Everyone there loved the X-Files,
Yeah.
To be in the zeitgeist is a wild thing. So
Yeah.
Patrick, tell me some more about that experience, or like another convention experience you got.
I mean, I've been going to New York Comic Con. I think I've gone every year since I moved here, so that would be 9. And then I've been to San Diego twice. I worked at it last year, which was a whole other experience because I was like stuck in one very specific spot. Luckily, it was like a busy spot, so a lot was happening, but it was like one very specific spot, and you'd get like Google updates that would be like, oh, Tom Cruise is here. And you're like, oh, okay, great. I'll never see him. It doesn't matter. Like, that's great. But, you get to see a lot of cool, like Connor and I would go see that panel, or like I met Carrie Fisher there like one year. Like there's just a lot of cool things that you wouldn't be able to do at other places. And you run into friends and you run into people that you never thought you would see anywhere. And like, you buy stuff that seems awesome in the moment, and maybe it is, or maybe you were just like excited to spend money, which I've definitely done both of. But I love going to conventions and I miss it. And, hopefully next year we can, but maybe 2029,
Yeah, right.
I feel like talking about the psychological peer pressure of buying stuff at Comic-Con, so much of it too is if you're looking at an item at a booth, whether it's like an exclusive thing or just something the seller has, you're seeing so many people walk by that booth at every second.
They're going to get it.
You're like, someone else might take this at any moment.
Yeah.
There's so much more foot traffic than there is at a store that everything feels so urgent.
Yeah.
I bought Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy production sketches from the first season of SpongeBob.
Wow.
I bought one. I think I bought Mermaid Man first, and then I went home or to the hotel, and the next day I was like, I gotta go get Barnacle.
I get the other one.
Yeah.
Right.
What am I doing? Why did I only do that? And it's just messes with your head. It really does.
Yeah.
I once spent several days. I would just return to a booth where they had an original Charles Schultz drawing it was a butternut bread peanuts ad that he'd drawn the art for, and I knew I wasn't going to buy it. It cost thousands of dollars. There was no world, but I would just visit it. Like, I have a 3-day pass to come look at it, and kind of pretend like, what if I could buy this? And I would do that with things. I would go and look at a thing for several days in a row, and then I'll think I need to go back and see it one more time.
Yeah.
Kind of try it on mentally, so to speak. You know?
Yeah.
My obsession is like board games, and what you're not seeing on the other side of the camera is like a wall of like 300 board games. That's my jam.
Yeah.
And man, going to conventions are hell for that. Because like anytime I go in, because like I don't know if you guys play board games, but I mean they're like $60 a pop on average now, right?
And there's a lot of them.
That adds up. And so anytime I walk into a dealer hall, like I feel like to Connor's point, I have to support the vendors. I've got to buy something, I feel bad being in this space. Like I don't even walk into game stores in Atlanta unless I'm confident I will walk out with something because I want to support the local shop or stuff like that. Yeah. There's a lot of games on this shelf that I'm looking at now. Depressingly realize a lot of them are open. So maybe this is a good time for me to slip down. Right on. So I want to kind of hear more about the nerdy stuff like you guys are in specifically too. Obviously we know about Star Wars. Obviously I think it's safe to say we're all Star Wars fans under this digital roof. But like beyond that, like what are some of the nerdy things you guys are into? What got you to Star Wars, or even just completely things that people might not consider geeky, but is geeky to you? Where you guys want to start with that?
I was 3 when I saw Star Wars, so I don't think there was anything that predated it particularly. Like my parents got me to Star Wars in their car. I mean, that was it. It was the first. It was the first thing, and then my whole life has been cartoons and comics and things like that. I don't remember a time where I had to get into it because it was just always around me, and I liked it from as early as I could remember.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I feel like Connor, where for me it was more of the only thing I remember is the conscious choice of I'm not going to drop this stuff just because everyone else seems to be aging out of it, Like I feel like all 3 of us are very much the types of people, I can't speak for you, Chris, but I have a feeling you might be the same, who were taking these things very seriously at a young age, at an age where other people were just looking to them for enjoyment. We were analyzing them and trying to figure out why those choices were made, because I think from a young age we were developing the types of brains that would lead us to want to do this sort of stuff someday. And so for me it was more the choice of like, I'm not going to stop buying action figures. I'm not going to stop watching Saturday morning cartoons, you know, and just year by year doubling down on that sort of stuff. But I feel like we have, all three of us have a lot of the same reference points. I mean, we all love Jim Henson, and we love sort of comic strips and comedy, and I mean, all these sorts of weird corners.
Right. I think that there's a very fair corners, though. I mean, comedy obviously being the touchstone for, you know, you guys have the improv background and stuff like that. You feel like I've improv here in Atlanta as well. You can't really get into that with having some kind of pop culture awareness, I think. You know, there's definitely a degree of that. So, Patrick, is same kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's I'm literally looking in my window right now to see what's behind me. But yeah, I mean, it's Muppets, it's Star Wars, it's comics, it's Simpsons, it's, you know, X-Files down here. There's so much stuff. It's just like anything.
All three of us are not omnivores, but we have pretty wide diets.
Yeah, wide diets, but also like most of them like overlap with each other.
Right.
For sure.
And I also think, like Griffin said, like we all take it seriously, but I also think the other side of that coin that makes it healthy is that it's we're very playful about it.
Yeah,
We take it seriously in how much we like it, but it's also none of this is stuff that we get upset about. You know what I mean? It's not like, because sometimes people who take it seriously, and it seems like it's this burden that is a source of like stress and conflict within, and I think we all have. I think part of the reason we started like doing the show had to do with that thing of like we play with our stuff, you know, like whether I'm not a grown man who still plays with toys, but I pretend to be George Lucas and play with my friends, you know.
And Connor, we should say that the majority of the stuff in your background you bought specifically for the show.
But not all of it.
Not all of it.
The Max Headroom poster, that's mine.
Right.
Yeah, you know, there's lots of stuff that but like the 35-foot banner from Taco Bell that was for the exterior of a Taco Bell when Fandom came out, that was purchased for $100 as show set dress.
Yeah.
So that wasn't
Well,
yeah, exactly.
That's a good distinction. What Connor said, though, because I misphrased it, I think, by saying we took these things very seriously from a young age. I think the thing that unifies the three of us is we think about these things very thoroughly, and that we don't have to apply it to a serious prism, because I think it's a thing we've always strove for with George Lucas Talk Show. We don't talk about it that much. I think we're just all sort of unified on this front. And it's one of the reasons we work well together, is like we think about this stuff thoroughly. We have a stupid amount of knowledge about it, but we don't view it as sort of sacrosanct. You know, we don't view it as something that cannot be touched. And I think we're constantly trying to strike that balance between paying respect to these things we care about a lot, and also realizing that everything is silly. I mean, literally everything in the world is silly, and it's, you know, fandom isn't something you should weaponize to start fights with other people. It's something that should be a unifying force, even if we don't agree on every little sliver of it.
And I think that's one of the most important things about the show, too, is that we do keep it silly. Like, keeping it silly, I think, has kept the show going for as long as it has. And I think even, like, we did a show at New York Comic Con a few years ago where Connor asked people in the audience, like, who here is mad at Star Wars?
Oh, God.
And then there wasn't a bunch of people that stood up or raised their hand, but, like, some people did.
There was like 6 people in a room of like 400.
Yeah, it was not a high ratio, but I think just like calling that out immediately to be like, don't be mad at it. What are you doing? Stop it.
We're here for love.
Yeah. I think that helps and keeps it healthy and keeps the fans that we want to have.
Because there's a great solution to anyone who's angry at Star Wars movies, which is just stop watching them.
Right.
But
there are people that are angry at them, but they're like, oh, I'm a completionist, right?
Yeah.
You know, you may or may not like the most recent trilogy.
You don't have to be.
Yeah, exactly. I hit that point with television years ago where I was like, I mean, I like the show at first, but 20 more episodes of this. I got to a point, especially because, you know, with what I do for this convention, like I typically try to stay entrenched in pop culture across the board. So I'm watching tons of stuff because I like it. And it took me a second to realize I'm consuming this because I love it. Why am I hate watching this thing? You know, why am I keep coming back to this? And it's a weird environment that we've bred in that regard.
I think that's another common thread that the three of us have. And these are reasons why the three of us over time started attracting towards each other, because we started recognizing in group settings like, oh, you have the same reference base. You think about these things the same way I do. I think a thing that unifies the three of us is we all do have this completist mindset. But I think we tie that with, if you're going to be a completist about stuff, because we're all three obsessive people, if we like something, we go, I want to see all of it. I want to understand everything about everyone involved. I want to know everything that everyone involved also did outside of this thing. If you're a completist, you have to accept that not all of it is good. You know, you can't put the onus on the property to say you have to maintain a standard of quality. You put the onus on yourself to say, what of this do I like? But I'm trying to engage with all of it, because part of liking it is understanding why the things I don't like work against what I like about it, and why the things I do like do embody those traits. And I feel like when I met Patrick, he was in the midst of a project where he was watching every single episode of Saturday Night Live, watching like 40 years at that point. And that's a perfect example of like, we love Saturday Night Live, but part of loving Saturday Night Live is knowing that at best, 50% of Saturday Night Live is going to be bad. At best, and when it's at its absolute strongest, half of every episode is bad.
And that's fine. That's fine. Like, you just accept it. I think something, and this is something that Connor will say is George a lot. If someone comes on and they're like, well, I love Star Wars. Well, I don't love episode 1.
Right.
Connor will be like, well, that's what happened. Like, that's part of the story. So I think something that my brain will automatically do is say something. I was looking over, I love Lost. I love the TV show Lost. A lot of people, there's, you know, back there's a bunch of Lost stuff. A lot of people don't necessarily love all of Lost. And there are parts that I don't, but my brain will just go, well, that's what happened. You just enjoy it, because this is what you're getting, you know?
Yeah, Lost was one of those early divisive shows. I think like that was like one of the first major conversational shows. You know, and to me, that was like, I love the show. Again, I accept its faults. I love it through and through. And I hear the critiques. But, you know, I remember the good stuff.
Sure.
And you know, we've seen a lot of like Battlestar Galactica has a very divisive ending conversation, things like that, too. And it's wild to see those particular conversations happen. And the battleground that has become the Star Wars fandom has been one of those things like as we see at conventions. It's like, wait, I thought we were here because we loved the thing. Why are you ignoring, like, gatekeeping is a huge thing. I'm against gatekeeping as a whole, right? I don't care how you come to the table. Let's geek out about Star Wars. I mean, hell, look at our backgrounds. Yeah, let's talk about the nerdy stuff that we like. I don't care why you like it. I want to know that you like it.
Well, Connor, you always make such a good point about the Ewok TV movies.
Oh, no. Go on now.
Well, when, you know, I grew up, and, you know, people who grow up now, they have, like, if you're becoming a Star Wars fan now, that means you have a lot of work ahead of you. You have to watch all these movies. For me, you know, I was 3 years old and I was watching the re-release in theaters, the 1978 re-release. And then a couple years later, there was a new Star Wars. And then a few years later, there was a third one. And then a couple years after that, there was like, here's an Ewok movie. And the next year, like, here's another Ewok movie. And these movies are done. They were released theatrically in Europe, but they were done with like a TV budget. So it looks like it's the cheapest that Star Wars maybe has ever officially looked. Like, it is like interesting to see, like, this takes place in the same world as the Star Wars movies, but they were not given as much money to make this. So it's like a cheap Star Wars, but it's still story by George Lucas, produced by George Lucas. It's canon.
Fourth and fifth Star Wars movies ever made.
And the movies are weird and silly. And I knew at the time that these were not as good as the Han Solo Star Wars movies. But it also sort of, it prepared me for a world. I was like, well, those are Star Wars movies. And it sort of prepared me at the right age for like, well, they're not all going to be great. And I actually do think those movies are great now. As an adult, I think they're campy and fun, and they're for kids. And so I wasn't mad when the prequels came out, because I didn't think of Star Wars as this perfect thing. And there are a lot of adults. And there are a lot of adults that, if they're being honest with themselves, they probably really only like 2 Star Wars movies. And they're kind of at various degrees of anger about all of the other ones. And if you think about that, That's like, if you go into like a Baskin Robbins and there's 2 kinds of ice cream you like and you hate all the other ones, you don't run around Baskin Robbins screaming about how you don't like most of the flavors here. You just order the ice cream that you like.
Yeah, you enjoy the 2 flavors that you like. Yeah. I'm just remembering, I believe I saw both Ewok movies before I saw any of the proper Star Wars films.
Wow.
Because my mother was very overprotective about what I watched, and those Ewok movies were weirdly in rotation on the Disney Channel in the early 90s.
Yes.
Which is funny because they're not on Disney Plus. It's funny that now you can't get them.
But like, first of all, the Ewoks are disliked within the Star Wars canon, right? Like that's the element that the original fans start to separate pieces away in the original trilogy. And B, those movies are just not really even accepted or thought of as part of the saga. And my entry point to Star Wars was, the Ewoks, they're great enough that they warrant 2 of their own movies. And I think when I finally came around to seeing Star Wars, I was less precious about it in that way, even though I care about it deeply and I think about it thoroughly, It's
also funny to think about the fact that the Ewoks got 2 of their own movies decades before Han Solo got his own movie.
Right.
And he only got one.
The Ewoks are the breakout characters.
Right.
They're clearly, if they got 2 movies of their own, everyone must love them, right?
I have a question for you guys too. It's a very niche market, but I think this is the right market. Are you aware of Wicked the musical?
No.
So, all right. So I will casually promote this and we could talk offline.
Is this like a fan musical, like a Star Kid type thing?
Yeah. Dad's Garage is a local improv house here in Atlanta. They're friends of mine, their family. You guys are familiar with that. One of their main performers, Travis Sharp, brilliant guy. He heard a joke. So he heard someone talking about Wicked, the musical. And so he made a joke of, like Wicked, like Star Wars. And they're like, no, dude. And so he made a joke poster and then went on to make a musical.
Wow.
Dad's Garage, through the pandemic, live theater is taking a huge hit. They've been living on Twitch. Every now and then they'll show it on their streams and stuff like that. So I got to get you guys in touch with them. We'll do that after the show. Because this is very much your wheelhouse. So I have a feeling I can keep talking here all day, but I do need to kind of start wrapping things up. And with that, I'm going to go to my final question from the bowl here. Randall, my friend, my co-host Randall, he's the silent host, has a question from the audience. So do you guys want to do one question for all of you or one question per? These are random
Let's
questions.
do one per, right?
One per.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Patrick, we've got colors here. We've got orange, green, yellow, and pink. Orange. On the orange. All right. We'll get a good one. I'll just set this down here to make it easier. All right, Patrick, your question is, what is the most memorable compliment you have ever received?
Wow.
Yeah. Whichever one you remember should be the one.
Yeah, I have one. One time I met this guy on a set and he came up to me and he said, "Hey, you're Patrick, right? Big fan of your work." And it was the first time I'd ever met this guy, and he was an actor. And he was the star of a web series, and it was Griffin.
I was a fan of Patrick's because he worked on the crew of a cable access TV show that I was obsessed with, which is how I came to know Connor and Patrick.
Yeah.
I earnestly went up to him and said, "Big fan of your work." And he said, "What does that mean?"
Yeah. Is that a good thing? I'm confused.
We're here.
Recognition is weird. Yeah. Like, I don't get the recognition that you guys get, obviously, but like in my hometown, the first time that happened to me at DragonCon, I'm like, wait, who are you? I don't know you. So
I was also a 19-year-old child.
Oh my goodness! Wow, that's amazing.
I was a big fan of his work.
That's awesome.
Great.
All right. Well, we'll continue with Griffin. We've got some colors here. We got yellow, green, pink, and orange. What you want?
What is the most memorable compliment you ever gave to Patrick? I would like green, please.
Green. All right, we got a green card here. All right, little Disney question here. Apparently, if you were in Beast's castle when it was cursed, what object do you think you would be, Griffin Newman?
Oh man, wood is the interesting word here because it's not what object would you want to be. It's what do you think you would actually end up being.
That's the right question. Yeah.
Right. And I'm a pretty self-deprecating person. So I'm trying to think of the correct answer without being too critical of myself. I think I would probably be, I'm trying to think of one that like isn't taken within the universe, but feels appropriate for me. I would maybe be something like, I keep on going to scatological stuff, which I don't want to do.
I mean, the days are a hot conversation.
Backing out.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm gonna say it. I'm a big believer. There's an item I own called the Squatty Potty. It was a Shark Tank item. It's a little stool you use to put your feet up while you're on the toilet. I think I would end up being a Squatty Potty.
I think it's a very valid.
It's not what I'd want to be, but I think it is what I'd end up being.
That's what you deserve. That's fair. All right, Connor.
Don't mess this up.
All right.
Last one.
What color left?
We got some orange, pink, yellow, and green. They've got orange. So let's do pink or yellow.
I'll go with yellow because I'm a coward.
All right. Yellow card for you, my friend. If we lived in an RPG world, what kind of loot would you drop?
I mean, that's not in my wheelhouse. What kind of loot would I drop?
Yeah, like if you've been defeated, what trash or gear do you drop?
I'm gonna say the musical instrument, a lute, an actual lute.
Okay.
That's what I would
lute.
Yeah, a medieval instrument, the lute.
Nice. A little bit of feedback loop there. It's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, gents, I want to thank you for your time. This has been an awesome near half hour. And I encourage everyone to go out there, check out you guys. Where can we find your show?
planetscum.live on Sundays. Most of the time it's 8 p.m. Eastern time, but once a month we have a very long fundraiser show. Our next fundraiser show is on Sunday, September 20th. It will start at 9 a.m. Eastern time and it will go for 17 hours. We'll be watching the entirety of Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip, raising money for Broadway Cares. Patrick is currently obsessively booking every single human being who he can find who is involved in Studio 60 who will agree to be on the show.
Yeah, we got a lot of them. We can't say names. We got a lot of them, and big names too.
Every few hours we get a text from Patrick that is announcing another person that he's gotten, and some of them are very impressive.
That's awesome.
But you can watch all the shows. We've done over 130 hours of content. They're all on YouTube.
Just since May.
You can hop in, watch whatever you want to do. It's all on YouTube. Check it out. Come watch the show. It's fun.
Yeah, George Lucas Talk Show account on YouTube.
Right. Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks so much. Hopefully, we'll get some of our DragonCon fans to get to know you more. And then, maybe down the road, we'll actually get you guys down here in Atlanta sometime. So,
would love it.
Man, all right. Love you guys so much. Thank you for your time. And thank you, DragonCon.